Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Higher Origins podcast. My name's Daniel,
I'm Matthew.
and today we're going to be going over a bunch of data. That's what we've been doing. We've been looking at the numbers on the California cannabis industry. We used to do this much more often. We used to release quarterly reports, and we kind of just fell out of the habit, and we just dove back into the state licensing data and have been pulling some insights out of it. So the data we're working with is the California state license list, and this shows all of the licenses that California has ever issued for cannabis across all categories, current and previous. So the ones that have expired and the ones that are currently active. And they report this on their website. You can just go on the DCC, the California Unified Cannabis License Search, and download this whole massive CSV file. It's not super well formatted, and we've kind of been able to massage it. We created a kind of a ridiculous Frankenstein's monster of an Excel file that we've been using over the years, and that allows us to basically take all of that information and see what licenses are active now, how much cultivation is being done across the state, what's being done where, and trends in gain or loss of licenses, square footage, things like that. Um, we tend to measure cultivation in square footage because it's much more accurate than licenses. So with licenses, you know that a bunch of people have actually like done the paperwork, but with square footage, it actually gives you a better idea of how much is being grown. You can have a county that has 10 like small specialty cottage licenses, which is like only a couple thousand square feet, or you can have a county with one large license and that's like a whole acre. And so if you look at them just by licenses, you'll think, oh, one county has 10, one county has one, but the county with one has more. So that's why we default to square footage rather than licenses. So what do you think about the data that California has been giving us, Matt?
Um, it's useful information in terms of kind of what we do with it on like the tech side of Higher Origins. I actually have an importer that pulls in all the licenses every day. And then it like goes through and does its own data massaging to fit it into a schema or a format that's easier for us to query and us to be able to like associate with like for example our trading partners or orders or things like that so we can offer better verification on platform of just who is who, what is what. It's gotten better in the sense that originally this license list used to actually like include the addresses and like the Latin long of every single cultivation.
Yeah, that
So
was sketchy.
that wasn't as great. Now they limit it down to just showing the region that the farm is in or the manufacturer distributor, and then we actually get the locations for the retailers. So, we can be a little bit more specific on the retail side, more vague on the cultivation.
Yeah, and just to clarify, for anybody who's used our license search on the website, this is the same data set. The license search is just more informational for licenses. This data is that we're working at is much more of the trends, when licenses are created or canceled and where. So just using the same set for different kinds of nerdy functions. So I'll just go through a few little like quirks of the data. This is kind of probably a little too much of a deep dive, but I'll just do it anyway because I've been buried in it for the past 48 hours. Things that the state likes to tweak or hasn't done really well. So licenses can have a bunch of different statuses, whether they've been canceled or suspended or revoked or are in some kind of legal limbo. The state's definitions for the licenses or the state's definitions for statuses that they list on their website are not exactly the ones they use in the actual data set. So if you have the data set and you're looking at what the state says it contains, you're going to just have to figure half of that out yourself. Luckily, it's not too hard. Another thing that they've done is in the beginning of 2023, the option for a large license opened up, which is basically just a larger license type. It allows you to consolidate many smaller licenses under one large type, which is, I mean, it is efficient for bureaucracy, less licenses to deal with, many down to one, which is fine. The thing is now with every license type, it tells you what amount of square footage that license can cultivate. Large does not do that. It just says a minimum of an acre for outdoor or something. So that gives you an idea of at least the minimum of what they could legally cultivate, but not the maximum. So basically, a lot of cultivation licenses that disappeared, you would have a situation where a farm had, I don't know, 20 small licenses, and then they closed all those and got a large license. That's great for them, but we don't know if those licenses that closed actually closed or if they're just still being cultivated, and we don't know how much of that square footage actually applies to the current state of what's being cultivated. So it's a huge headache. So we figured out a way to kind of estimate based on closed licenses what a farm might be cultivating, but that has put a little bit of an error bar on our total statewide cultivation numbers for square footage. So just keep that in mind when you review all of our data. We do call that out on our graphs so people know that there's a little bit of a tolerance there. But thanks DCC. You really made our job difficult with that one.
Yeah, if by chance they are listening, I mean, the idea of maybe reporting like what the active, because there's a lot of cases where as a farm you'll be say like a 10,000 square foot permit and you fallow half of it. So you're only actively cultivating 5,000 square foot, or you downsize for, some reason, one way or another. Being able to know what the like active, like cultivated square foot, you know, breakdown, I think would be especially helpful for any kind of data.
Yeah, and while we're not for extra government, inquisition of every single license, I think it kind of does match up with the overall like idea of like what a regulator should just generally do is like at least know what's happening. And if they just, everybody's got to renew their license every year, you could just write down, oh, I only plan on cultivating, half of this, or I'm a large license and I plan to do 100,000 square feet or a million or whatever crazy number I can do. Like that's useful information for us, for the state, um, and it helps them estimate like the crop yields, which is something that they already want to know. They're kind of looking at, oh, if we have a 10,000 square feet and this is the average amount of weed that we get off of that, that helps them to maybe be able to determine if there's diversion going on or the yields or compare wet weights and things like that. So I think that's good data. DCC, if you're listening, Clint, talking to you, uh, maybe consider asking for that on an annual license resubmission form. May or
Yeah,
may
I
not add
mean,
too much difficulty, but something to think about.
yeah, one extra field, I mean, that would be kind of a game changer there. Um, because on like the flip side of it, when you look at like some of the smallest license types, as the industry has kind of beaten them while they're down, they've had to downscale significantly. So there's a lot of, 10,000, 5,000 square foot permits that are only actively cultivating, 2 or 5,000 square foot. So if the DCC is, you know, running the numbers in the spreadsheet and they're like going, oh, it's okay, when reality, half of the, the people on like the lower half of the bar are struggling and they're really producing to what they could.
Yeah, it would show basically, the health of all the licenses out there. If everybody has a license that can do 10,000, but everybody's only growing 2,000, maybe there's something that the regulators are doing that is preventing them from growing more. Hmm. Uh, there's another case that this applies to as well. And when I remember a couple years ago, we were going through the data, and Lake County went from like they lost like millions of square feet in one quarter, and we were like, what the hell happened? It turns out that it was basically just like hundreds of licenses owned by a few massive Canadian stock market funded VC weird kind of paper tiger farms that looked huge but had no actual cultivation. We were actually able to go on one of the hype Instagram accounts for this VC brand, and they said, "Oh, here's the pictures of our plants on our new world's biggest cannabis farm that we started, and look at this." And they had pictures where you could see like a row of plants growing. And we went online and we found the location of this supposed mega farm, and it was this huge empty field, just uncultivated, and then there was one tiny pot farm in the corner of it, and we could actually see the tree line on Google Maps and see the picture of the tree line in the background on the photo on Instagram, and realize that they had basically taken one picture of one row in one tiny cultivated area and passed that off as the weed for this massive, like acre on acre, huge operation. And then their company went completely bankrupt, and all of those licenses poofed into nothingness. And we thought that Lake County had fallen into a hole in the ground, at least based on the numbers. So if that's the situation where a bunch of stuff is listed, but it's just kind of pending cultivation, tell the state that. It makes everybody's job easier for data analytics, the state included. End of rant. Thought that was interesting. Anyway, so all of that complexity aside, looking at the numbers right now for this year, what have we seen? So when I start talking about these graphs, I'll throw them up so y'all can see them if you happen to be watching on YouTube. So basically what's happened is since inception, so since 2018, the short answer is cultivation has peaked in around end of 2021, beginning of 2022. For outdoor cultivation, that peaked around, I don't know, 82 million square feet around then, and it's since tapered off to now it's around 53 million square feet. So you're looking at, what is that? 25-30% loss. Um, then if you look at mixed light, that seems to have started around, I don't know, about 15 million square feet, peaked around the same time as outdoor at about 25, and now it's down to about 10. Interestingly, and those two are still trending downwards. But if you look at indoor, it basically peaked in 2022 at 10 million square feet, give or take, and has stayed there. So indoor is the most consistent category and the one that has consistently been maintaining its licensure and its area of growth.
That
Um,
makes sense though. I mean,
it
just
does.
with kind of it takes a lot of large upfront investment.
Yeah.
So I think maybe the business plans were a little bit more solid there.
Yeah, I mean it's higher upfront cost, but over time you do pay it off faster. And there is generally less randomness. I mean, you're not getting wildfire smoke screwing up your indoor grow.
Yep.
You're
Same
basically,
inputs, generally same outputs. You're turning through, you're doing, fresh material every 2 weeks. Like,
yeah, if you're maintaining a standard schedule, I mean, you can harvest very frequently. You can kind of get that consistent income that can paper over any holes in your revenue that are left by retailers not paying you.
so
Uh,
I'd assume at this point now that they've kind of gotten such a consistent supply into the market that they've kind of, I forget the saying, but they've kind of, flooded their own market, and now they're kind of getting lower prices because of it.
Potentially. I mean, they definitely like if you're indoor, like you have the consistency to really just like lock down shelf and leave it there and basically be filling the same ticket every month for years on end. And I mean, if you look at the stability of the industry, that is suggested when it comes to indoor. Like I think that is a safe bet to make. So I don't know if they've flooded their market, but it's
It's
very
at least
like,
saturated.
yeah, it's saturated. Like indoor is indoor, which kind of a throwback to previous conversations we've had about the lack of accurate labeling on flower and where it comes from. I am very curious what percentage of stuff that is it says indoor on the label is actually indoor, because if you look at it, indoor is like 14%, 13% of the total statewide production, but in certain everything's indoor. Like you got to get that dro. It's great, and it's like if somebody says every single product on their shelf in their store is indoor, I'm going to say they're probably wrong on at least a few of them if they have a big inventory.
I mean, it depends. Like, I know, like, if you're going to source trim, like, generally speaking, the people who have like the most consistent trim is indoor.
True.
So a lot of pre-roll manufacturers source their trim from indoor operations. Yeah, I mean, it would probably be, it wouldn't surprise me that if you were actually able to get like what was the advertised light type of the flower, because they don't regulate that, so it's just all hearsay.
Yeah.
Um, it's probably higher numbers on the indoor side because the amount of either mixed light or um, in cases of like outdoor grown in greenhouses, and it's like perfect, ideal, whatever, where you can kind of, get that specific look and tune your nutrients in such a way. Um, that could easily pass as indoor as well.
Yeah,
Like
and there's also just
I've seen some
industry
incredible
pressure.
depths.
Yeah. There's industry pressure also from the retail side where a lot of retailers are just like, "Oh, we don't want outdoor." And
True.
so there's lots of outdoor. Well, if you're growing outdoor and they don't want to buy outdoor, your outdoor damn well better look like something else.
Yeah, I mean, but like I think again that goes with like the same idea where like outdoor can sell for like mid-grade, mixed light. And then, high grade mixed light is, selling as indoor and, you just kind of chop the line down. So I think, all light types kind of trickle into the next. And, you know, that's been almost like another term that's been used as like a quality indicator to consumers, where like indoor is generally your highest ticket price. It's like, it's fire, it's gonna, get you the highest, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, the cultural obsession with indoor as like the peak. And don't get me wrong, there's fantastic indoor. Like the genetics, the control that you can get is truly wild. Um, but I think that's can my this is totally just me kind of guessing, but I would feel that cultural influence came from like all of the really hype High Times magazine covers in head shops in like the 2000s, because back then a lot of the outdoor wasn't really getting those covers. So
Well,
that just
but
kind
to
of
be
built
fair,
that
back
cultural
then,
awareness.
outdoor, like you could probably convince someone that outdoor was indoor back then.
I think you could still convince most consumers that good weed from any grow type is the same as any other grow type because they're given so little information on the actual plant. Um, but industry people,
This is
yeah,
true.
that's a little different. So anyway, that aside, looking at a slightly different graph here. So this is looking at active cultivation square foot by county right now, here in January 2026. So the top 80% of square footage in the state is only in 12 counties. The top 50% is only in four. Those four being, in order of largest to smallest, Santa Barbara, Humboldt County, Lake County, and Mendocino County. If you look at the top five overall, Santa Barbara, Humboldt, Lake, Mendocino, and Trinity. So you've got the Emerald Triangle, Santa Barbara, and Lake County, which is like next to the Emerald Triangle. Um, that said, in scale, uh, Santa Barbara is basically doing the same as Lake, Mendocino, Trinity, and Riverside County combined. Um, so yeah, Lake Santa Barbara is still on top. They're basically about
How close is the margin between Humboldt and Santa Barbara?
yeah. So Santa Barbara is 17,500,000 square feet, give or take, and Humboldt is around, I want to say like 14.5.
Okay.
So it's not terribly off. I mean, basically 2 million in the balance, which a couple big farms in Santa Barbara go under. That could mean that Humboldt is number one for total cultivation in the state. And that's interesting because there's so many big farms out there, many of which are VC backed large conglomerate corporations that are based out of Santa Barbara, that are in receivership right now. So if those legal sales don't go anywhere, I know that I mean, we've been talking to people who are trying to buy licenses recently or trying to sell licenses recently, and they're not going for very much. They're not going at auction. Like, it's hard to sell stuff. And especially from a company that is currently being cannibalized by lawyers. So there's a chance that if those legal proceedings and those sales don't go well, Santa Barbara might drop, especially if Humboldt just keeps on steaming in the direction it has been. So that's just top line numbers. And again, for all of those, the vast majority is outdoor. I want to say it's probably, uh, let's see, Santa Barbara has maybe 1 million square feet of mixed light. Humboldt has maybe 2 million, and
Okay.
the rest of that is outdoor. Indoor is not well represented in either of those counties. Indoor is extremely well represented down in the LA area. Out of the top 12, the only places that have any appreciable amount is Los Angeles, which is almost entirely indoor, like 99%. Riverside has a bit. They have maybe about 800,000 square feet. And Monterey has, I don't know, maybe 100 to 200,000. So more, upscale urban areas where they don't have room for a big ass farm, but they do have empty warehouses and lots of available power hookups. So depending on how often they're harvesting, I mean, if you're doing a full turnover every 3 or 4 months, I mean, you're doing at least 3 crops a year out of a. So every 1 million square feet of indoor is basically 3 million square feet of outdoor in terms of annual. Although the yields can be a little different. Uh, so just kind of numbers to think of. This is kind of just like a little real top level preview of the kind of calculations and data we're looking at. We'll get much more in depth in the coming weeks. We just scratched the surface and cleaned the data set, so we're going to get real weird with it. Yeah, any of that stuff, any of those numbers kind of jump out to you for anything, Matt?
Um, I mean, it looks like, I mean, the industry's consolidating. Things are like kind of gradually settling, it seems. It'll be curious to see. I mean, every year there's a good chunk of fall off. I mean, just knowing farms locally, they are dropping pretty quick. But then again, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's one of those things that's yeah, just look at the top line numbers and see kind of where the trends are at.
It's interesting. Like I was thinking when I was going through the numbers earlier, like what if the state, snapped their fingers and just like revoked a bunch of taxes and costs and basically somehow, did some magic and changed the market so it was now optimal for people to grow legally. And we see the numbers for outdoor, especially, but everything go back up. Would that be coming from new builds or people re-entering the market after having gone to the traditional illicit market? Is the question. It'd be kind of an interesting piece of information I'll never be able to get, but
I mean, just kind of like being in the area. I mean, I think a lot of the people who jumped out of the industry are like on the later half of their lives. And like I've kind of gotten the vibe that they've either just like pieced out somewhere and they're just like living the homestead life and just chilling out, or they went back, got a normal job, and they're pursuing those avenues. Um, to get in it. Obviously, there's going to be the cost, the water boards, everything. So if someone were to get back into it, like on a small scale, wouldn't surprise me if it was also preceded by, you know, a traditional, style grow, then, to kind of kickstart it. Because obviously, in like today's economy and everything, it's not like anyone's becoming millionaires off of working average jobs.
yeah, starting completely from scratch for a grow is obviously more complicated than just legitimizing your illicit grow. Um,
I could see scenarios where people who have licenses that are like on the edge of jumping out, just because the community is so small that there is probably a number of people who will kind of keep the life in them, at least keep because like margins are so thin at this point. Like you're either running the farm and you are like going through the full crop cycle, or you're just quitting because there's no like really taking a time off. I mean, I don't know too many farms who have that luxury.
Yeah, there's a few who keep on. We've just an aside. Hello at higherorigins.com inbox. We get some weird stuff. You're welcome to send us stuff. Don't make it too weird. But we get people who just, I assume, Google a license or Google California cannabis, and this pops up as a contact. Maybe we're getting scraped. I don't know. We get sent all kinds of weird stuff. And recently we've got a couple emails about people having their licenses up for lease. So some people are trying to lease out that farm, you know.
Yeah, well, I think what it was is we sent out an email and then someone replied with the email that we sent out saying like,
Oh, that was it.
"Hey, thank you, appreciate you. I'm selling my farm. Do you know anyone?"
Yeah, nope. I mean, we know plenty of people, but they're kind of all in the same boat. Uh, One thing, okay, so the email thing. We do not handle anyone's revenue or money or debts or anything. We are not a debt collection service. We do not hold the accounts of anybody. We are cannabis ancillary. We are a software company that goes out and does on like in-person marketing for people who buy our software and use our services. So, if you are hearing this and you are a representative for a debt collection company who is working on the debts of a cannabis firm, do not email us, do not call us. We can't help you. I don't know how y'all are thinking that we're the people to call. We have no idea. And in
I mean,
fact, by you telling us whose debt you're trying to collect and how much it's for, you're giving a journalist a bunch of information that we're going to think about and figure out who we want to work with and who we don't want to work with. So just don't email us about that.
it is funny though to get like the collections notice from, whatever company Uline works with. And
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like
somebody owes
they're like,
Uline.
"Oh, I know that distributor. Oh, I know that packing company." And you're just like, "Oh, okay." You look them up, they're under receivership or.
Yeah, if you're if you know Higher Origins and you're a distributor and you owe Uline a bunch of money, pay your damn bills. We're tired of getting your collection emails.
Yeah,
Anyway,
$11,000 to be specific.
yeah. If you owe $11,000, please fix that. Anyway, moving on. Um, what's the dev situation looking like? What have you been cranking away on the code side?
Mostly some infrastructure changes, uh, mostly to do with like error reporting. So I have better tracking for what people are doing when they have issues so that I can be a little bit more proactive in reaching out when I see someone just like spamming a button. Um, Also added in product variants, because previously when you're listing to the marketplace or menu or any of the product pages that go public, you would have to do like in the case of Mental Mystic, it would be like Mystic Lights, 3.5 gram flour, Mystic Lights, 14-gram flour, and it'd be two separate listings. Um, it was just kind of annoying to deal with. So I added in the concept of product variants. So you can have like the same Mystic Lights flour, and that could be its product listing. And under there you have variants for 3 gram, 7 gram, 14 gram, 28 gram. Because often, and more specifically in like the case of selling through your retail brand, I'm not sure how useful this is wholesale. I guess in theory you could say like 1 pound is this much and then 10 pounds is this much. So if you wanted to like offer some kind of a volume discount, even though I don't think that's really preferred. But yeah, you just get product variants. So you could just set up on the product 3.5 gram, whatever, and then yeah, on the buy side, they'll just have another separate drop down. You can set minimum quantities, the different prices for product variants, different weights. And yeah, on retail side, as long as it has the same COA, that covers all the variants. So if you have like bulk pounds in your packaging and your milers or jars or whatever, um, then this is perfectly functional for that use case.
Okay.
Um, and then just started working on the like as part of what triggered us doing a little bit more dives into the like analytics side is one of the farms that are on our platform, Lost Paradise Organics. Hi.
Hello.
Um, you know, reached out to us and said, hey, I had questions about this, that, whatever. And I had previously talked to them about using the license search to like do data visualization in a certain way. And I believe the solution that I've wound up to that is being able to use the license search to then you basically query and you like filter by region, different types, light types, whatever. I'll have a bunch of knobs to press and turn and whatnot. But you'll have a summarize button, and that'll take you to a separate view that will kind of give a dashboard view of those numbers with, a few fancy charts, key numbers, comparisons amongst the, other regions, because I'll just automatically break things down by region. So, like, for example, you filter to Mendocino County, Humboldt, and Trinity, then it's like you kind of get like an emerald triangle report.
Got you. Okay.
Um, So been working on that. So probably by the next time that we get to the next podcast, that will probably be done. We'll be talking about it likely. But yeah, just mostly cranking away on that.
One other thing I remember we did a little bit of talking about was the situation where you have a brand that joins that has multiple farms that are part of it. So like you would be
Oh,
able to
correct.
control that.
Yeah, that was another thing that I've had to work on. Because also probably listening Trinity Trailheads. Hi.
Hello.
Um, in order to have like because they're I believe three farms that are co-branded under Trailheads. So in order to kind of be able to best show the like transparency and be able to go like, okay, this product actually came from this farm. Okay, here's the brand Trailheads. Here's all the farms underneath it that sell products underneath it. So when you go to either the farm page, Trailheads shows up, or when you go to Trailheads, the farm page shows up, and vice versa, and all that. Um, but yeah, I had to add in like page associations and kind of how all of that functions. Um, nothing too crazy. A lot of it's just like UI work, and now that I have the data structure on the back end, it's just mostly going through and going like, okay, here's how I want to display UI on a public page versus a marketplace page versus, menu and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Cool. These all make sense. Um, let's see. Moving on. So in the vape market, there's things happening. The most immediate thing is that Stizzy has legal issues. They were importing some vapes, and those vapes were in somehow infringing on intellectual property held by PAX, the little vape, the dry herb vape company. And so PAX filed some court filings against them, and the U.S. government has banned Stizzy from importing those vape products now. They can't import their little pods. So as a result, they're looking down a supply shortage whenever they run out of their current stock. Don't know how long that's going to be. Don't know if they're going to be able to find a way to challenge that or reopen their import rules or anything like that. But just interesting to see that one of the biggest companies out there is getting the supplies for one of their most popular products cut off. So I don't know if they'll switch to 510s or what. Speaking of switching to 510s in a more kind of large, affecting everyone sense, there's a new law that's getting thrown around, AB 762. I've got it pulled up here. This is, let's see, introduced by Assembly members Irwin and Wilson. I'm not sure where Irwin and Wilson represent. If y'all are listening, hello. Um, Basically, the law bans disposable vapes. That's pretty much exactly what it's for. So anything where you can't change the battery, where you can't replace the cartridge, anything like that, can't do it anymore. They're completely trying to limit that and make that illegal. And this is not just for cannabis vapes. This is also for tobacco vapes. So this would affect your geek bars. If there's any geekers out there, sorry, California's coming for your geek bar. This has not passed yet. Currently, it has been reintroduced. It's done a second reading, and it's going to have a third reading. So yeah, it's going through the legislature right now. Um, this is interesting. Personally, just on a personal note, I don't think that disposable vapes are a good product. I think it's a massive waste. You're just dumping tons of batteries and electronics straight into the trash. And why would you do that when we have things with rechargeable and changeable batteries and replaceable cartridges of different kinds? I mean, if Juul could do replaceable cartridges, fine. If 510s work, fine. Why do we have to throw it in the garbage? End of my rant.
Convenience.
It is convenient, but you know, the cost of convenience on the environment can be quite steep. Anyway,
Oh, that's for the future. We don't have to worry about that
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, we'll just keep, give that can a solid kick.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that's the situation there. We'll keep you updated on how that legislation goes. But if that does go through, I don't know if it would be something where it would be an immediate cutoff, like stop the containers, we're not letting you import anymore, or if it would be, you have 6 months, a year, 2 years, some legislative time frame with which you have to comply. I don't know how quick of a cutoff it would be if it were to pass. And yeah, so this would mean that a lot of people would switch to 510 carts or other kinds of vapes, which totally work. There's no problem with that technology. It's definitely effective. So I don't know if that would have any immediate impact on the vape market or the concentrates market. That might make the price go up and down a little bit for a while everyone's going through that transition. But since we're just switching to a proven technology of 510s and other types of vapes that already exist, it probably wouldn't be too big of an effect on the market for oil. What do you think?
Well, I know that the oil market, because the products last longer, they tend to make more upfront. So wouldn't shock me if there is a large supply. So if they did put in like a really short timeline for implementation, that might cause a bunch of companies who just kind of have to throw away product.
Yeah,
I
what's
mean,
in
or else like,
inventory is a good question. Yeah, if you've got, millions of pods stacked up already filled and you've just got them in cold storage and then suddenly those become obsolete, you're screwed.
there'll be probably a significant amount of people that are, you know, upset because I mean people do invest in batteries and whatnot like it's an ecosystem. So if you're not necessarily on 510 thread or the pods or
I think the actual wording of this basically, as far as I can tell, it talks about like so you can throw out the 510. You can throw out the cartridge. It's just the gizmo.
okay.
The
Well,
gizmo.
you have to take that to a hazmat facility though.
Yeah, that's
Special
right. I
orders.
do remember that there was a rule. I don't know if that was that a law that was going to be passed or was passed. I remember writing
No,
about that.
I'm like 95% sure it's a thing.
I will reference that and put a little blurb up here, whether still exists as a law or not. But basically, the rule was that you have to treat old vape cartridges like toxic waste, and you can't just throw it in the garbage, which everyone's going to do anyway. And it's not a, frankly, it doesn't matter. It's just a little piece of glass and ceramic and metal with like some old plant material in it. Like it's fine. I don't think any. Maybe they're assuming that wayward, mischievous underage people are going to be fishing through the garbage can, yoinking out an old, mostly burned out cartridge and scraping the oil out. Like, if you're worried about such an edge case, you're basically designing for insanity and nothing's going to make sense to you. So I'm not too worried about that as like a risk. It's
Yeah,
just kind of a dumb law.
they're almost treating it like it's motor oil, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's just a kind of a ridiculous law. Anyway, that's something that we will let you know about as it develops. What else do we have to talk about here? So, you told me something about Retail ID, which is the metrics QR code tool for verifying and learning about products. What was you said something about New York having that rolled out now?
Yeah, so they're rolling out mandating the like requiring the use of metric ID, and metric ID is basically a little QR code that goes on each individual like retail packaging. The idea is that like distribution uses it, goes into retail, and it's supposed to make everything easier, and you're supposed to be able to like import and like track inventory a lot easier. But one of the kickers for this mandatory implementation that it is a 10 cents for each unique identifier, so each QR code. Um, and this is actually a shout out, and we'll get a little bit into it in a minute, but this is being quoted from Lucid Green, which has a similar product that predates Retail ID. But they went to say, or have this little example for a case of 25 units. The metric UID for the case at 10 cents per case. The metric UID per unit would be 10 cents per, say 25 of those units, which means that in total, as an operator in New York, you are spending $2.60 to metric to package your products and have a label on it. So I don't know. I mean, you could say and argue that it's for security and transparency and whatnot. Having built out some QR code systems, 10 cents for a QR code is asinine.
Yeah, I mean, if
Um,
we can generate them on our own system all day long. I mean, we could probably generate hundreds of them and it wouldn't cost us 10 cents. Like,
no, but it's another point in the middle where they're I don't know, they're just
yeah.
taking more from the industry.
So I mean, this is New York. This is not California. We don't know what they're going to try and do. I mean, this is like a worry that we've kind of just been watching Metric for a while. I mean, first what happened was they released Metric Connect, which is their tier 2 API. API is like the tool that you use, the software interface that you use to plug other software into Metric. So if you're using your Dutchy or your Leafly or any of those other third party things, it has to talk to Metric through an API. And California State mandated a free one that everybody can use. We used it for a while. We still do if we have to. We don't like it, but it works. But then Metric released Metric Connect, which doesn't actually seem to add that much functionality, but it can cost a bunch. I believe one integrator, Flourish, said that they were looking at potentially spending $100,000 a year to integrate with it in Oregon. And Metric Connect has basically been mandated in a few states, which means that the costs for integration in those states are like astronomical now. And they haven't said that they're going to do that in California. We actually haven't heard any indication that they will. But uh, many of the companies that Metric shares investors with are integrators that are suddenly talking about how great Metric Connect is. So I'm worried that they're going to mandate this in California. This whole thing is actually why High Origins specifically, we basically disconnected High Origins from Metric 99% of the time. We still use it for one or two things if you need it, but it's pretty much not our focus anymore because it's just not a reliable thing. Like as a startup, we don't want to build our entire software on something that is just going to become financially non-viable at whenever they decide it, and then we're screwed. So we backed out of it. Um, Retail ID is the same thing. And clearly they're turning it into another cash cow in New York. They bring that here. That's a problem. So just
Well,
worried
and they
about how they're going to
already
try and
do
wring more
it.
money out of us.
They already do it to a certain extent because in California we have the luxury of not having to pay for our package tags and plant tags.
True.
Um, in like place like Colorado, for example, they have to pay them. I think plant tags they're like in the 10 to 20 cent range, and then package tags are in like the 30 to 45 cent range.
Right. So in
Uh,
California, we do pay for them, but not, the farm doesn't have to shell out money directly. It's through, I guess, license fees and taxes cover it. So we pay, just
correct.
not piecemeal.
So if they roll out the metric retail ID in a similar way to where we are putting the bill for it regardless, that's just going to make, I mean, that's, I mean, California is just going to tax us more and make us pay more for our licenses in order to cover the costs. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, here's the thing with retail ID. It's kind of on the face, it's not a horrible idea. Like, you've got the state track and trace, which should theoretically, whole different conversation, have good information about the weed. The customer is like, oh, let me learn about this weed. They scan it, QR code pops up, throws them, the regulatory information about it. That's just good. I mean, more information is great. Also, because it's like, man, it works across the entire supply chain. So it basically creates a single QR code that you can use from basically seed to sale through distro, through transport, through retail. So if you're a retailer and you're like, oh, we have to retag every single SKU that we get in for like inventory tracking, and you're spending all this money on stickers and time, and the new guy's got to sit back there and peel labels for hours on end when you get a new shipment, this would eliminate that. So that's cool. Don't get
I
me
mean,
wrong.
I was just on the I think it's the Weed Biz subreddit. And there
Mm-hmm.
was someone like literally today complaining about how what's the deal with metric retail ID because they have to re-sticker over the QR code retail ID with their own POS QR code because they were using trees, which apparently supports it, but it never works correctly.
Okay, so it theoretically would work, but it's broken, so they still have to sticker it. I see.
Correct.
Well,
But
that's
which
typical for
and I think
metric.
and I think a lot of it has to do because from my understanding, like how the QR codes are implemented, they're implemented as like a URL that opens up either an app clip, if you're on iOS or Android, that will prompt you to download the app.
Right.
Uh, because originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, it was Chroma Signet was the company that Metric acquired, which has its own
Okay.
slew of issues.
Yeah.
But they acquired it. It's effectively an app that would then create like these tokens, throw it on the blockchain, and have verified
Okay.
ownership of those items.
So
Uh,
let's get into the lore here. So I wrote an article about this. I'll throw a link or a QR code. You can find it. It's called The Problems and Hollow Promises of Metric Retail ID. Anyway, a couple years ago, there was this company called Chroma Signet, and they were one of those crazy blockchain startups that everybody gave a gazillion dollars to, and they were going pretty good. They were working with Nike and people for a while, and the whole point of it was that it was like a QR code that would link the QR code information to the blockchain, whether that's through a token or a wallet. It was kind of a universal interaction thing, and the idea was that you could use it to validate the thing that it was stuck to be genuine or relevant to the blockchain in some way. That's way too deep of a rabbit hole. All I'm going to say is that is an incredibly head ass thought that has never made sense in implementation or reality. Um, Different argument. But so Chroma Signet made this thing and they thought it was great. Specifically, the creator of the company is a guy called Marcus Estes, actually an important character. We'll get to him in a second. So this company kind of was going along. Metric purchased it in April 2023, and it was a big deal. They hired Marcus Estes on as a consultant or manager or something, and they were cooking along for about a year, and they were starting to hint that Metric retail ID was going to be a thing. Suddenly, lawsuit. Marcus Estes is getting sued by Metric. He's trying to sue Metric and saying that they fired him for being a whistleblower. And basically, it was because he said that, hey guys, Metric fucking sucks, and everything in it is this emperor has no clothes. He was really trying to show off their dirty laundry. They didn't like that. Lawsuits back and forth, yada yada yada. Basically, retail ID drops, and it's still technically like if you go back and click on the link for the Chroma Signet app, it will redirect to Metric. So somewhere down in there, there's still some connection to the old software.
I mean, it's the
Anyway,
same app core. Like I haven't re-downloaded the app or anything. It's still yeah. It just got renamed from Chroma Signet to Metric.
yeah, so it's this external thing, and keep in mind, Chroma Signet was a blockchain company, and what they had built was not necessarily that technically impressive. It was more or less just kind of a slightly different cloned version of a UPC standard barcode with a few more data slots that you could use to connect to smart contracts. It was fine. It's cool. It's not earth-shattering and complicated.
So
And
I believe part of like what they wanted to do though was build out like wasn't it like at the end of the day like referral network type thing like you could track. It's like in the app because the original Chroma Signet, whenever you scanned an item that was being verified, it would show up as like your item, and then
yeah,
so and then like I think what part of like their original pitch is that then they can give like either special, deals or offerings to people that bought these
yeah, the
special
idea was,
items or whatever.
yeah, if you buy the thing and you scan the item and you get the NFT that's associated with the item or whatever, you can be like, I have bought 10 items from XYZ Co. That makes me like a loyal customer, and now XYZ Co. can see that and try and issue me discounts or special offers or whatever. I'm in their VIP group. That's cool. Metric doesn't seem to be instituting that. I mean, maybe it's something
But
that
the
somebody
same
could
the
do through
same
a third party, but it's
functionality
not a thing that's being pushed at the moment.
the same functionality still exists in the app where you when you do scan a metric retail ID, it still shows up as like and they renamed it from like your items to favorites. So now it becomes a favorite item. I'm
Yeah.
curious if they would be bold enough that like if the market got consolidated enough to where they're just working with like these 5, 10 companies or big pharma or whatever, put on tinfoil hat, that then they just like offer their affiliate rebate program.
Well, I mean, it's a small the investor club of Metric and a lot of other integrators is a big club, and you're not in it. Basically, it's there's this massive company called Tiger Global, which is invested in basically all of the big softwares for cannabis.
There's also is it Casa Verde, the one that Snoop Dogg is?
Casa Verde is also, I believe, a part of it's either another Tiger Global thing, or it's, yeah, basically all these big VCs kind of have their fingers on all the same pies. So they, there are board meetings where people who have stakes in all of these things talk to each other, and it's not too unheard of for that to cause kind of consolidation in deals where it'd be like, okay, cool, you run like uh, this big integrator. I'm not saying any specific names because I don't want to get sued, but uh, and you say, oh, okay, well, we're going to use Metric's Retail ID exclusively for this one feature, which Metric is supposed to be a fairly impartial, like, industry government affiliated, government mandated contractor, but they would be giving a clear advantage to a private market player with this technology. And that's not good. I do not like
Well,
that.
I mean, they're already doing it with Retail ID in the extent that as a small operator, even just the thought of having to implement Metric Retail ID, if you're not using a third-party software, which is largely going to cost you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month in order to actually be able to package your products effectively.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as just like going into Metric and oh now you get a COA label that you have to slap on your jar. They give you the QR code,
Yeah.
and
Because,
then now
like,
you have to figure out how to get that QR code into the individual product labels.
yeah, because
And
like
so it's
we have the technical capacity right now in Higher Origins, and we have done this to a certain extent to build QR code based systems. We've tested them before; they're mostly built. We'll probably expand on them in the future because they are quite useful. But if we wanted to add metric retail ID, something that we are more than capable from a technical perspective of doing right now, probably Matt could code it up overnight. We still couldn't afford to do that unless we were, making millions of dollars, which we're not. And so we are effectively shut out of that, bringing that benefit to any brands that we work with. They would have to go through one of those other people. So we're being outcompeted due to metrics price tag that they're using to influence access to the data that we as taxpayers have paid for. So that on its own doesn't make me feel good. Like there are not like other versions. I believe you mentioned earlier Lucid Green was kind of the state of the industry art of QR codes
literally Retail
before.
ID. is like a one for one of what Lucid ID is right now and has been for like the last 6 years, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Lucid was there before, and don't get me wrong. I mean, Lucid, you guys do what you do, go for it. We were not hugely impressed with the technology, and especially not impressed with the price behind Lucid. We just don't think that it's great value for money. We know people have used it. They were tired about the crazy fees they had to pay. That's their business. Whatever. They're getting completely destroyed by Retail ID here, which unfortunate for them. They've at least
And
been
for
very good
anyone
at
who
writing
hasn't
about this and
like
complaining about this loudly too. I mean, they're a big voice talking about these issues, so points for them for that.
and to like also just to like put it in like the most common terms, like retail ID is literally a QR code that takes you to the certificate of analysis or the product test results for that product and literally nothing else. It is literally a certificate of analysis lab test viewer. And it's like they're making it this expensive, like they're already hosting the files on Metric.
Yeah,
They already have a UID system that they could open up to allow some level of searching or public verification, because we already have to identify it with another product or like another tag of metrics and their UID there. So they're making us double tag things and they're like re-implementing their track and trace system to I guess probably try to capture more of the consumer market. If you get an app on someone's phone, now when they open the app, you can get their location, you can get all this other metadata for like tracking demographics of the users that are searching or scanning QR codes, which even now I
yeah,
think is probably a nominal percentage.
yeah. And it's like the claims that they make about Retail ID are pretty much kind of hollow. I mean, like it ensures that products are legal, lab tested, and safe for consumption. No, a QR code doesn't ensure shit. It just ensures that somebody wrote stuff down in metric and it got to production. That's all it means.
I mean,
So,
sure, but okay, like let's say if I'm a trapper, right, or I'm doing like black market sales.
right.
I go to a licensed shop. I pull out my phone and I just take a picture of the retail ID.
Yeah. Boom. There you go. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
my product's now verified, legal, and legit, guys.
Yeah. That's insane. Totally ridiculous. And because metric is pushing so hard, this makes everything safer and more legit. Your average consumer might believe that and be like, "Oh, it's safer and more
But I
legit. I
think
got this jar
I
with a QR code on it. It's safe and legit."
but I mean if you like really think about it, like I think there because I think every retailer can go through the pain of having to manually sticker every single SKU with a special QR code that allows them to scan it into a special system because a lot of the cannabis systems out there did not standardize like UPCs. They're all like QR code based. Um, so I mean, I think right what retail ID is, it's a pitch to retailers to try to get distributors and farms to pay more money. Because right, like you can go with the messaging, hey retailers, we're going to save you a bunch of time, and this is how we're going to do it. And they're going to go, great. But the time that you're saving them, you're wasting further up the supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I,
And
and I'm already stickering a sticker with a metric UID on it. And
and a
but
QR
so
code,
and a QR code. So it's
which
like,
points to the High Origins product page, which has a hell of a lot of information, and we can just add more.
yeah.
So like, and the thing is, it's also kind of a weird thing. Like, if Metric is relying on their third-party partners to roll this out, also because Metric can't just do this on their own. It has to go through their integrators, who are already paying them a shitload of money for the Connect, unless they just gave it to them on a homey hookup, which who knows? They very well may have. I don't know. Speculating. Um, then they're entirely dependent on how well those integrators roll it out. In the case, I think you mentioned it was Trees previously that somebody used, and their integration sucked. It didn't work, so they couldn't make the product. They had to sticker anyway. So if someone's technical and looks at this not working, like if we can understand that this doesn't work and Marcus Estes can understand this doesn't work, then I'm sure that some of the people who are working at, like Trees and Dutchy can also realize that this just is kind of a weird ass thing to put development hours into. So I don't know how far it's going to go. Like there are some retail ideas out there right now. I haven't seen
I
many.
mean, this post on Reddit.
Link me
Oh, you
that. I'll
know
put it
what?
in the I'll put it on the video.
This is actually okay. I think I know who. It's a retailer that posted this. Questions for California cannabis business. Is anyone actually using Metric Retail ID successfully? As a retailer, we've been trying to use Metric Retail ID in California where it's optional and are running into consistent problems where making it feels unusable in practice. At a high level, we're seeing consumer QR codes that show data, IDs, cannabinoid percentages that don't clearly line up with what's printed on the package or visible to retailers in Metric. Which a caveat to that is on like if I remember correctly, on the packaging itself, like the THC percentage doesn't necessarily have to be the percentage that's on the COA. It has to be within 10%.
And they could
But
just
there's a
have
margin
packaging
of
from a
error.
previous batch that they're just reusing.
Correct. Multiple identifiers tied to a single product, source, package, batch, or other IDs with little clarity on what's meant for consumers versus retailers.
Hmm.
Retailer ID imports pulling far more barcodes than were actually purchased, creating POS conflicts and forcing restickering anyways. POS vendors, Trees in our case, effectively recommend not using Retail ID due to these issues. Retail ID was pitched as a way to save time and avoid relabeling, but so far it has added complexity and risk instead. Since California only requires batch level tracking, it's not clear why unit level retail IDs are being exposed in ways that don't work cleanly with retail operations. Before we decide whether to completely opt out, including on our future white label products, I'm curious, are other California retailers using Metric Retail ID successfully, or are most of you just opting out and stickering everything yourselves? Trying to understand this as a solvable workflow issue, or if retail ID just isn't ready for prime time in California. And with a comment right now of it's a complete mess.
And this is not a new product. I mean, they hired Estes in 2023. It was an effect. It was built out at that point. It took them, I guess, a year to even to really integrate it at all. And I mean, frankly, like I guess the only silver lining of this is that we can be glad that Metric didn't just go full steam ahead on the blockchain aspect of this. Um, before we've talked kind of over time, but I will rant about blockchain just for a minute here. Um, any application for blockchain in cannabis at this point is basically worthless. And specifically, there's just one I want to rant about: protecting genetics, putting genetics on the blockchain. So basically, how it would work is someone who bred a plant, the farmer bred some plant and it's his hot damn strain, and he's somehow represented that genetic, whether it's through a genetic test, which is hard and expensive to get, or if it's just through like the name and pictures or the COA or something, and uses that information to mint an NFT. That NFT goes into some kind of blockchain project, which then somehow is used as a validation point for that genetic and to prove that that guy, or at least the wallet holder, was the person who minted that, created that genetic. Like there are so many like idealized processes that have to go right for that to work, and everyone needs to be operating up on the up and up, that it wouldn't work. Also, like nobody's going to do that. The actual genetic is actually not that important, frankly. I mean, these days, like you can have a great genetic and it's going to go to, you're going to send it out to a distro and it's going to go to a bunch of different people who sell it and put it on white labels, and it's going to have a different name for each time. And every season it's going to test a little differently, whether it was on the uphill or downhill side of the farm, it's going to test differently. If you left the water on too long or the dog peed in the wrong plant, it's going to test differently. Like everything, like the specificity of the exact strain getting to market as a marketable identifiable thing is just so random with the labeling and renaming. that even if you did have a strain that was protected legally at a genetic level, being able to translate that over to looking at a product on a shelf and saying that's in violation of my genetic rights is so freaking difficult, even within the current like long-standing world of agricultural genetic law, which does exist for, we all know Monsanto. They've made genetic patents on all kinds of stuff. That's complicated enough as it is. Now try and do it in cannabis where there's less testing and more malfeasance and more complication and less good regulation. Like, what the hell? So basically, long story short, if someone's trying to get you into, protecting your valuable genetic property by minting an NFT, uh, just don't do it. They're trying to take your money, or they are so hopelessly idealized with the concept of blockchain as an effective technology that they just don't, they can't understand the application because there really is none. Like, blockchain is good for speculating on the market if you want to make money, for some very, very niche things, potentially online games, online assets. But as far as your weed genetics, just keep your seeds in the damn gun safe and don't give them to people if you don't want them to have it. Like, that's about the best way to do
And true.
it. Anyway, on that note, is there anything else you'd like to go over, Matt?
No, looks like we've been chatting for a minute, so
All right. Well, in that case, everybody, thanks for tuning in and listening to us yap, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Bye.
see ya.